Does Greg Popovich deserve criticism as a coach? Is Russell Westbrook having an all-time great season? Who will win tonight's marquee matchup between the Cavs and the Warriors? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast, and again, our Monday podcast with Coach Dave Dufour. As always, on Mondays, here we are. Dave, we're going to chop up some serious basketball today.
Yes, we are. Absolutely. I'm ready to tackle some of these problems that we've been complaining to each other about privately.
Wait, no, we're going to tackle them and solve them. Remember, that's the whole point, is that we're here to help and ameliorate and solve and really just take these things on. And I think what we wanted to start with was an interesting game between the Suns and the Spurs, where the Suns actually pulled it out almost in spite of themselves. You happened to catch the end of that game, right?
I did. I caught the last play. You actually sent me the link to the video of the last play, and you and I both agree. I mean, it was a really weird call. It should have been just to set the scene. There were 5 seconds left. The Suns were up 3, so the Spurs needed to get a 3 off, and the play they ran basically wound up amounting to a post up for Pau Gasol, and so the Suns foul. Pau is not a good free throw shooter, and so the game's over. As soon as they commit that foul, the game's over. So you and I both thought it was weird, and you did a little bit of digging. Because you were confused by the timeouts.
Right. So I'm a muckracker, so I'm going to dig a little bit and find out. Because one of the things we thought was, okay, they had to bail them out by throwing the ball in because they were worried that the 5-second call was going to happen, and did they have another timeout? It actually looked like they kind of did, but then I got Ronnie Nunn on the phone, ex-NBA Ronnie Nunn, and ex-NBA ref Ronnie Nunn, and we went through the rule because it is really confusing. And so before we get to even the foul or defender foul notion of that last possession, here's the thing that's interesting was that the rules in the NBA are very strange for timeouts, and no other level has to deal with the fact that you can advance the ball, which makes the timeout a much more valuable thing when you can advance the ball to half court after a timeout. Now, here's the thing: you cannot take more than 3 timeouts in the fourth quarter. Which is interesting. I like that. It's a flow thing, right? They don't want to bog down the game because you could save, you get your 6 timeouts. You get, I think it's two 20-second timeouts and 4 regular timeouts. And you could save all those, and then all of a sudden, you're every possession you're calling a timeout, it would make the last few games really too long. And I think no one wants that.
Yeah, I agree. While we're talking about the timeout, I actually think that the NBA needs to adopt the FIBA rules on the timeout. Only allow timeouts on a dead ball. I don't really like the advancement. I don't like guys being able to it really drives me crazy in college where you have pressing and trapping, whereas in the NBA you don't really have that. But bailing a guy out after the defense makes a great play, like allowing him to just turn around and stop the play in the middle. No, man. Could you imagine if a quarterback was dropping back? And I know you hate football and, I don't really watch it anymore. But if a quarterback's dropping back and someone's coming to sack the quarterback and all of a sudden he just says, oh, timeout. No, it's just not. No. That's disruptive.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, it's funny because at the high school level, the coach is allowed to call it. I think everyone can call it. All the coaches can call it on every level. And that's another one of those weird things where, it's like it's been helpful in the past, but again, it's like the players are supposed to decide this game and they're the ones who are supposed to be heads up and make those calls or not. So, I'm kind of torn by that at least a little bit. I think I'm much more interested in a better flow to the game than sort of taking it away as a strategic thing. Because I'm sure as a coach, as a defensive guy, if you're like you got them and then they get to bail themselves out with a timeout, that's a frustrating thing. But the bottom line is what happened in the end of this game, which is really interesting, is that if you have 3 timeouts or more with 2 minutes to go, and let's just say they're full timeouts, one of them is changed to a 20. You lose one of them, and you only have 1 full left. You get 2 timeouts, 1 full and 1 20 in the last 2 minutes, no matter how many you have before then. And so what happened was that the Spurs called, they called a full with 1:30 left, and then they called the 20 with the 4 seconds to go before the inbounds play. So according to the rules, they did not have another timeout left, which is why it was confusing. On the board, there was one timeout left on the graphic on the bottom of the screen, which confused me and I'm sure a lot of other people, because the question then became, all right, did they throw it into Powell because they couldn't get the ball in, they were panicking, and they didn't call that timeout they could have used? And so that was one answer. Well, they couldn't call a timeout. They had to get it in. But the play, when you watch how it unfolded, clearly looked to me like they wanted to throw it to Powell, and then Kawhi was getting a flare screen from LaMarcus Aldridge up on top of the three-point line, and Powell was going to just turn and fire it, I guess, for a weak side three, or maybe LaMarcus Aldridge popping out for the three on the strong side. And as you said, the biggest problem is that they just fouled Powell. You're throwing the ball to a guy with his back to the basket. There's no chance where he'll be in a shooting motion where he can then maybe throw the ball in and get a three-point play that way, which would be, a horrible ending course of events. So my take on that was that Pop, I think it's pretty clear, and you confirmed this for me, that Pop doesn't foul when they're up by three, when it's his example, right?
Yeah, I've never seen him foul up three.
So here's the question, right? And this is a coaching thing, but also, as a fan, you're interested in this because you're watching these games, they happen. It's an interesting debate. If you're up by three, if you foul the other team, when there's 5 seconds, 6 seconds to go, then there's no chance to tie the game. They have to shoot 2 free throws, and you just get the rebound, obviously, and then you're okay. The game's pretty much over. Some teams opt to defend, right? Foul or defend. Some teams try it, and we've seen this. How many times have we seen it now in the last 5 years where they try and foul them, and they end up getting into a shooting motion from behind the three-point line? How many times have we seen that?
It happens a ton, especially because it's now a skill that guys are working on. Like we talk about James Harden with this all the time. The second he feels a hand on his chest, second he feels that hand check, he goes into a shooting motion and he gets that foul call. And this is what they call it a flop, but that's a skill. Hand checking is illegal. Yeah. So he takes advantage of the rule.
And I would say on 80% of those, it's a serious. It's the guy is bringing his hands up and he gets whacked. I mean, it's not even like an iffy one. It's a real. There's real contact there. So that is obviously part of the issue. I'm sure it's why you're afraid to foul when you're up by three. So you need to be able to practice it and have some rules. We talked about this yesterday about the guy's back needs to be to the basket. There's a couple things like that. I know Del Harris had it all written out at some point, but certainly you can ask the New Orleans Pelicans about it because you might remember Steph Curry hit the most amazing three of all time in the left corner to tie it when the Warriors were I think Mo Space or somebody had the ball, not even looking at the basket, and they easily could have just grabbed them, and they didn't. And then I think it was Gentry at that point was was it Gentry?
No, it was Monty Williams.
Oh, so Monty Williams, right, was we told them to foul, and they didn't, which is probably not cool to say publicly anyway. But either way, we've also seen enough where the guy hits the three, right? Where you say to yourself, you should have just fouled. The ball came in, maybe it was another pass or he dribbled. Because once he's dribbling, down low, again, the guys are good at this now, so it's a weird thing. So you got to really work on it. But you can't foul him while he's shooting the three, but you got to try and just take that foul. And since Pop doesn't do that, it kind of felt like he didn't conceive that the other team would have tried that.
Right. Well, also, there's nothing to stop you from committing a reach-in foul on that inbound pass. If you're going, as long as you're going for the ball, as long as it's a basketball play, a little bit of contact and you're going to get the foul call. They're not going to, I guess, as long as you're not grabbing the guy's jersey, because they'll let that go now, away from the ball, you can do whatever you want. But as long as you're defending the pass on the ball, yeah, just go ahead and commit your foul there, and then you don't even give them a chance to get up the shot.
Right. And how about this? Have the guy guarding the inbounder face the other way and watch, and then just move to where the guy is going open. Then you can almost double team that and just grab him. Right. Even if he's kind of passing the ball off back to your man, you could be hammering him, and they'll probably call that, and then you're all set to go. There's only 2 free throws, so it cost the Spurs the game, and no one asked him about it. I was looking up, any kind of, I couldn't seem to find any, quotes from Pop that talked about it. Did you see anything?
No, I did not, and I have noticed that reporters don't really question Pop on game, like particular situations. They'll ask these general questions, but nobody ever questions, okay, why did you make this call or whatever. It's one of these things where they just defer to the greatness of Pop rather than holding him accountable like they would, Billy Donovan or someone like that. And it's fine. I understand, like, he's been doing this a long time, and he is, to me, he's the best coach to ever coach in the NBA. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, this is obviously something that he screwed up, and we want to know, like, why did he do this? I'm sure he had a good reason for it. Mm-hmm. He's not the kind of guy that just does stuff willy-nilly. So I'd love to know what his reasoning is, because I can learn from it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it would be certainly a worthy question, and you're right. It seems like the only question we have now is has he earned that infallibleness? Does he deserve to not be questioned like other coaches? And that might be the case. The Spurs PR people are they're so protective. It's hard to even I wonder if the media there are even worried about asking it, because they might get trumped or something, and sort of not get access as easily or something.
Well, it's funny that you brought up Trump, because that's exactly what it reminds me of. Like, everyone laughs when Pop kind of pops a reporter. You know what I mean? Like, but it's not. I mean, these guys are trying to do their job. Not that Pop isn't, but at the same time, it's like, has he maybe intimidated reporters out of asking questions that are worth asking?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually trying to picture myself in that press conference asking him after the game in some reverential way. Like, was it discussed that they would take the foul and push in the line? Like, I think I would ask the question and then run away.
Right.
But it would certainly, it'd be interesting. And again, remember, when you sign that contract as a coach, you are acknowledging that you are going to get second guessed and criticized by every asshole like me every day. So it's not like you can't be surprised that, oh, wait, how dare you, sir, question what I'm doing. That's got to be in the contract, I would almost think. And so he wouldn't be surprised by that. But, and we've seen it before. Like, when they lost that 7-game series to the Clippers, Pop lost that series because they continued to hack a DeAndre. Although there was a couple games they didn't. But when they did, remember what the ancillary, disadvantages are for that. Where, remember, the Clippers were very thin, and all you're doing is letting them rest, and you're not letting your offense come down the court fast, which is what they were really good at. And so they basically shot themselves in the foot, and it came down to, when we're talking about one possession to decide that series, and you've been hacking a DeAndre, and it really wasn't working well enough. That's on Pop.
Yeah, and that season, the Clippers weren't – it's not that they had a bad defense. They had a good defense, but they weren't exactly the most disciplined defense. So what you allowed them to do was not only catch their breath, but to get their defense set. They were never able to exploit a mismatch anywhere. And like you said, I mean, that Spurs team was so great at getting the ball up the court quickly and into their actions early. And so if you're doing that, mid-transition – okay, that's great for you. But if you're doing it against that defense, now the defense has a little bit more of an advantage. So, yeah, it really did shoot him in the foot.
Yeah. So, Pop is not infallible. Phil Jackson was not infallible, even though, he won so many of those championships and he had, the players. But, there is this notion of sometimes, you wonder whether or not they're just afraid to just even ask. I remember I got a chance to ask him a question, to Pop a question during the finals in 2014, and it's intense. It's like, he kind of looked at me for a second and answered it, and I kind of followed up, and he answered again a little bit about switching. Probably wasn't a very good question on my part, but it's interesting. So, here we are. Should we keep talking about the NBA?
Yeah, why not?
Is that why? That's why we're here, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, there's lots to talk about.
All right. Well, I want to talk about your interesting Russell Westbrook stats that you were sharing with me.
I don't know. Are you sure?
Yeah. Well, I just think that they're interesting. To me, it's not a knock. But just describe the stats so that everyone else is clued in.
So I'm on Synergy, and you have to remember with Synergy, it's this amazing database that has every play cataloged. And the problem with it is that they catalog it the way they deem the plays happen, spot up. And I've done lots of videos, we've all seen them with spot up and pick and roll. And is this a pick and roll or is that really the setup to something else and whatever? So, but they do amass all the possessions that players use. And the solace I take is that they're all being cataloged by the same methodology. So there should be some consistency across it, and so you can kind of take what you want from it. So they have an overall offensive ranking based on your points per possession, and it takes it's kind of like the PER number. But this is, to me, like, at least makes more sense because you're comparing across all the players, and you can limit it to guards only or all players. And so when you look at Russell Westbrook's numbers, and this has always been the case, which is sort of probably what got me on his case to begin with, which is why I wasn't as excited, was this year, overall, his offensive ranking is 48th percentile. And what that means is that 50th percentile is exactly average. And he is below the exactly average level in points per possession. Now, Dave, you want to break it down a little bit for why that makes sense to you?
Yeah. Okay. So he's not an efficient player. We know this, and what we get are these big round numbers, 30, 10, and 10. We get the gaudy stats, but people miss the fact that he's still using 42% of possessions when he's on the court, which is just such an insane number. Like, it is. So he's getting these huge counting stats because of how many possessions he's using, not because he's efficient with them. And for reference, James Harden was where? He was 68th.
So James Harden again is a better shooter, and he scores a little bit higher efficiency. So his overall percentile is 69th, which is now you're getting into that sort of good category. You're away from the average and you're moving into good. Now let me just give you some idea for the rankings, because basically, if you don't understand the percentiles of how that works, what we can do is look at the list and where they are on the list. And so if you take, and let's make it just guards only so we don't get all the apples and oranges mixed up. If you take it for the overall points per possession, you know what? I got to switch to points per possession. I'm on the wrong one, right? Real quick, because we'll talk about that in a second. If you look at the rankings for overall, and you limit the minimum possessions to, what did I say? Let's say 100. And then we talk about only guards only. It's a little slow populating the database, but let's go to guards only. Let's see here. I might have to change the minimum possessions because all right. Okay, here, this is not bad. So there's 134 guards in the NBA that have used at least 100 possessions. Okay, you with me?
Yep.
Russ is ranked 63rd out of 134. So that's what we think. He's right about in the middle there. Now you want to know, if you look at the guys who are above him, that now we start to paint more of a prettier picture about at least where he resides. So Russ is 63rd. Jordan Clarkson is 58th. Goran Dragic is 57th. Austin Rivers is 56th. They've all used a lot of possessions too. You keep going up the chain here. Avery Bradley is 39th. Seth Curry is 37th. And at the very top is interesting is George Hill. He just he's played enough where he's got enough possessions, but should we get rid of him because he hasn't played enough?
No, I think that it's fine. George Hill really, he's having a great season.
Yeah, because fair enough, but he's not really been playing. So of the 87 guards, right, that had 300 possessions, right? So CJ Miles is number one in the guards. Steph Curry is number two. And it goes from there. Isaiah Thomas is 3. Kyle Lowry is 4. And then, Russ is 47th. Now, James Harden is ranked 31st. So, that's not great. And there's still a lot of guys who are in front of him. Again, this is efficiency. So guys like Darren Collison simply aren't using as many, possessions. And so they're able to take smarter shots, right? And then they're able to take easier
more
shots.
Spot ups.
Right. I think as usage goes up, it's pretty clear to me that the difficulty of shots goes up, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, what do we say about the argument that he has to take those?
I disagree. I don't think he has to take those. All right, Russell Westbrook is obviously, he's a top 7 player in the league. and he's the best player in Oklahoma City. Like that. Let's get that out of the way. And I feel like I'm always couching these arguments with that.
And he's either the MVP or the just behind the MVP.
Right, which is how this whole conversation started in the first place. Is we were trying to find a way to compare Harden and Westbrook because it's difficult because their games are so radically different. Mm-hmm. And so the thing about Russ, okay, Victor Oladipo is having the best season of his career right now from an efficiency standpoint, playing next to Russ, and that's partly because of Russ. But I would love to see Victor Oladipo getting more touches when he's on the court with Russ. There's the whole thing. We both want Russ to play more off ball, do more cutting, things like that. But at the same time, he's averaging 10 assists a game, and he could probably average 15 if he gave the ball up a few more times to guys that were open.
Well, or the argument being that if he facilitated himself in the offense more and used his gravity more off ball, then he might not get the assist, but the team itself would be more efficient and score better. And I think, because remember, this is a unique situation because Russ is in charge of who's getting most of these shots, right? He holds that ball, and he's the puppeteer here, and that's the real issue. Now, we could be wrong. It could be a total shitstorm if he's like, because by the way, we've seen that like with Kobe in the past, where he's like, okay, fine, F you guys, you do it. But that's also, and I'm not saying Russ does that. Russ does not do that.
No.
We haven't seen that yet. Although I feel like maybe there was one game, right, where he kind of completely just disconnected and. My mind's eye is now lighting up. There was something about it, but it doesn't really do it. And that's also just as bad as just gunning every single time. There's got to be a balance there where you can use your gravity in the concept of a team offense to make your teammates better without having to be the guy pounding the ball the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got good pick and roll partners. Cantor and Adams are really good. You'd love to see him give the ball up a little bit more to the roll man. But, yeah, I think everyone should want Russ to be more efficient because it means his job is getting easier. This is the thing about Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry is super efficient. But Steph Curry also has guys around him that allow him to be super efficient. Now, it's not that I think that Steph Curry using 40% of possessions would be a Russell Westbrook type of shooter. No. But he turns the ball over at a high rate, and if he was using the ball 40% of the possessions, he would probably be worse than Russ, and not because he's making bad decisions necessarily. But you even said this. You were like, you think Steph Curry, one of his big goals is to entertain, which is why you see so many behind the back passes and stuff like that. Like he plays loose, it's fun. But I think that would get worse if he was the only guy on his team, so to speak, the only star.
Right. And the Russ turnover thing is a thing. It's because they tend to be they're frustratingly bad turnovers. I would say 40% of them, the kind that especially the ones on his passing turnovers. Although a lot of times the dribbling ones too, but the passing ones tend to be like he has made up his mind he's going to pass the ball to this one guy and it's not open and he's just going to throw it anyway. And again, those happen. He doesn't necessarily glower at the other guy for making the mistake, which is good. He runs back. But it's those like, pick and roll and the guy's rolling and there's two guys sandwiched the roll man and he still just throws it. And it doesn't even get anywhere near the receiver. Now, we could also factor in assists with all this because this is usually where you see guys even like Ricky Rubio, for instance, is horrible in his overall offensive rating. He's like 17th percentile. He's almost the bottom or the last, right? But when you factor in assists and the total amount of offense he generates, he's 96th percentile. He's right up there because he really facilitates well, and his usage rate is normal for a point guard. So, but if we look at that for Russ, it does go up to 72nd percentile. But again, if you're looking at players who've used at least 500 possessions with the points and assists, there's 124 of those overall, and Russell Westbrook is 53rd. He's like, again, it's average. James Harden, however, when you add in the assists, is 5th. So there's an example where when you do factor in what James Harden is doing scoring-wise and how he's assisting, And I have to imagine he's also assisting on a lot more threes, right? And that's going to also be a big boost. Now, I guess the other argument is, well, Russ doesn't have the 3-point shooters to throw to. Is that sort of the argument there?
Yeah, and it's not wrong. I mean, it is true. I mean, he doesn't have Ryan Anderson or Eric Gordon and, even Trevor Ariza. Trevor Ariza would probably be the best 3-point shooter in Oklahoma City if he was there.
Yes, probably.
I mean, because Morrow, you just can't play him anymore. Like Morrow, and he's actually not even shooting that well. When your calling card is that you're a 3-point marksman and you're not hitting threes, you can't get on the court. So
I know, but also but it's the other way around too. He's not getting any consistency. I mean, if you're a shooter, how are you expected to do that when you're playing like 5 minutes here, 15 there, and so it's a weird cycle there. But I think the point stands is that so that is part of it, obviously. So perhaps that maybe negates that argument a little bit, but at the very least, there's a success rate notion here, right? To each possession coming down and being successful or not, which kind of mitigates twos or threes. And the bottom line is they're just not very efficient, in that OKC offense, when they come down. And I guess we could see that if we quickly check what their offensive rating is for the whole team, which is not hard to find since we do have technology. I just saw the movie Hidden Figures, and
yes.
The first computer kind of pops up there by IBM. Did you see the movie?
I did not. No.
It's really, really just absolutely fantastic. And by the way, as we see, the Oklahoma City offensive rating is 13th. It's in that average range, and this all sort of makes sense. Can Russ do anything more, though? I mean, is this sort of? I mean, can Russ and the Thunder do any more? I think they're probably maxed either way, right?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, with their personnel, I think that they are kind of maxing out their potential, and which again, this is very much about Russell Westbrook. Like, they're not 25-17 without Russ, for sure. Like, they're almost in the 5th seed with Utah,
right?
And they're winning games that, like, I just wouldn't think that they could win.
Yeah.
And this is purely Russell Westbrook force of nature.
Well,
and you're going to take the good with the bad.
It is. I want to say it's the team. They've assembled a team, and we talked about this before, that really just complements him as well as they can with what they have. For the most part. I mean, I think there's probably 15% out there that maybe they could kind of squeeze a little bit more if Russ had some better decisions and didn't force as many as he feels like he has to, and all the fans feel like he has to. But again, that's a perfect world, I suppose. And then again, that would translate to what? Like 1 more win, 2 more wins. It's not like, I don't know if it's earth shattering. So again, they need kudos for maximizing everything they can do. But the question now is how do we rate Russ? Like, is this an all-time great season or not?
I mean, again, back to the round number thing. I think we get a little caught up in this round number stuff, the whole triple-double thing and 30, 10, and 10. I mean, it's not that it's not impressive. It's just that is it a top 20 season of all time? Possibly. I don't know. But it's definitely not one of the 2 or 3 best.
Right.
For sure. I mean, Steph Curry's year last year, we've talked about this before. Steph Curry's year last year was just so incredible. And your team's success matters. I don't care, like, the argument that Russ doesn't have enough help. Okay, well, that's team success is the whole point of the game, right? So going 73-9 for Steph, that gives him a little bit of a bump. Obviously the Jordan season where he won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, like, those are incredible. LeBron, what was it, 2010 or 2011? I don't know. But LeBron's had quite a few seasons that were just incredible. So, I don't know. It's going to be tough. It's tough to say. Again, right. While you're in it, you don't know.
Right. I mean, here, let's throw this out, okay? Because, and this will be a good pivot, Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is averaging 28 points a game, a little over 6 assists per game, is shooting 38% from 3 on a high volume of threes, and shooting very well from 2-point range as well. The team is winning, similarly to OKC. that's a pretty damn good year. And he certainly ranks higher in the synergy stats as well for efficiency. So, he's not getting 10 rebounds. It's not really his role. And by the way, I'm much taller than he is. It's like the rebounds are not going to come to him. So it's like, is he having a better season?
It's an impressive season. I don't know if it's a better season. It's tough, man. It's really hard. I would say it's close because, again, I don't care so much. Like, rebounds is such an opportunity stat.
Yeah.
It's sort of like RBIs in baseball. And for a small guard especially, like, Russ is 6'4", and he is always the best athlete on the court every night.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the rebounding thing that we were looking at?
Oh, yeah. I guess we could talk about that.
Yeah,
this is going to be – people are going to harp on us about harping on Westbrook. Westbrook's having a great season, but it's just there are things.
And I feel like this is a reasoned, debate. We're not going out and trashing everybody, but this is actually from Eric Horn, who's a beat writer for the Thunder. He sent it over to me. I didn't even see it. But there seems to be evidence that they're clearing out the defensive free throw rebounds for Russ, and he's getting a whole lot more this year than he did like last year, for instance. And it seems like it's a thing that they're doing to make sure he gets those rebounds. That's interesting. That's provocative, to say the least. Yeah,
well, I mean, that guy's job is to box out the shooter. Now, I mean, in the NBA, how much boxing out is there? Not a ton. So maybe it's not that big of a deal. And I know that one of their keys to their offense is to get the ball in Russ's hands as soon as possible, which is why these defensive rebounds they matter, because their best offense is their transition stuff off Russ defensive rebounds. But on a free throw, it's not a transition opportunity. So it's kind of weird. I don't know, man. Like the whole stat-based culture in basketball is weird.
It is. And I'm telling you, it's like this could be a video, right? Is Isaiah Thomas having a better year than Russell Westbrook? Like, I mean, he's not, right? But it's certainly like there's something in the realm, I would imagine, that there's there. Now, the funny thing about Isaiah is that when you look at his on-off numbers, I was kind of curious to see what his effect is. Clearly, Russ is, like they're like +6 with him on and -11 with him off. They're getting, killed with him off. And you look at, Isaiah Thomas's effect, and they're only a +2.1 when he's on the court, and they're a +3.6 when he's off. So they're actually doing better with him off. So that's probably the biggest, indication of, who's having a better year and impact on their team in theory. But if you want to look at like numbers, and that's what we're saying here, if the triple-double is kind of arbitrary to me because, if you got 9 assists in that one game, is that a worse game, because you didn't get the 10th one? I mean, geez. And so, if you had to parse it a little bit, and this might be, parsing too much, but, let's say throw out the rebounds and let's look at everything else on offense only. It's an interesting debate, to say the least, I'd imagine.
Well, here's what I would ask. If you traded Russell Westbrook for Isaiah Thomas, do the Celtics get better? Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, now this is more about the player than the season.
Could Russ exist in that ball movement? I don't know.
We don't know because he's never had a coach with the balls to stand up to him. If Sam Presti was half the GM that people say he is, this would not be an issue. But I've yet to see it. Like we've seen some of the issues that Kevin Durant has kind of had in Golden State where he will resort to an isolation possession. And one of my concerns when they signed him was, okay, how much of the problem was he in Oklahoma City? And he obviously was part of it. Seeing how frustrated Draymond got with him a couple weeks ago, this has been a thing that they've focused on. And he's been better of late. But not empowering your coach to come in and actually run an offense and coach, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is so. I listened to George Karl's interview with Zach Lowe,
Yeah.
and because like I want to hear what he had to say, and it was one of the things that he brought up. And Zach Lowe asked him, hey, should coaches make more than players? And he backtracked a little bit on that, and I think rightfully so. But at the same time, his argument for empowering coaches is a legitimate argument. If LeBron's playing for you, and LeBron has all the money and all the power, then why do you even need a coach?
Right. Well, because you do. He can't handle all that.
Sure, but as we saw, like LeBron's going to do what LeBron wants to do. And you can either be along for the ride and kind of be a yes man, or you can, pack your bags.
Right.
And so I think that if a team is going to hire a coach, then they need to empower that coach. And that is yet to happen in Oklahoma City. So that's what we run into. And this is what is the things that are driving us crazy about Russ. A good coach, like if he went, maybe Brad Stevens would get to him. I mean, we know that the Celtics are going to back up Brad Stevens no matter what. So maybe this is part of the problem. It's not so much Russ, it's more Oklahoma City front office and team that allow and God, this is going to sound terrible, but it's like almost like you need to protect Russ from himself. Not that he's bad, but it's just think about how much better he could be. That's what we've been saying.
You said it more eloquently than I've ever been able to say it. That's exactly what it is. And again, you look at these numbers, and most people would say, well, listen, like, what is it? So he can go to 32 points and 12 or 13 assists, whatever. It's like, you're right. Like, it's hard to imagine. And Blake Griffin has always been the same way. It's like, okay, he needs to improve this, like 6 things because he sucks at those or whatever. So he's going to go from 22 and 10 to 24 and 12, right, or whatever. I mean, but it's not really what it's about. There's something more intrinsic to being part of a team, getting the most out of your possessions. Again, and it's also against the top opponents. And that's what we've been harping on as well, is that it's all well and good to destroy Phoenix or Orlando. But these guys want to be judged under the crucible of a title contending team, and that's what you got to look at, and that's very difficult for fans, I think, to separate. That's a hard thing for them to kind of understand. And I understand it. It's a whole season. They're playing. Everyone plays everybody, but I'm always looking at it through the prism of, okay, how is that going to work against the Spurs or the Warriors or the Cavs?
Yeah, well, when you need a basket at the end of games, that's where you need your offense. And like the isolation stuff is just so 1991. And if you play a 7-game series, it's very easy, especially with current rules. Like, they can zone up and force Russ to shoot over the top. Right. And how's that going to work? So I don't know. I would love to see Russell Westbrook with a coach that he respects. And I don't know anything about his relationship with Billy Donovan, but I can't imagine that Billy Donovan is in there coaching this type of offense.
Right. And it's the same with Fred Hoiberg. And we've seen this, for a couple other people as well in the pros. I would be remiss if we didn't mention really quickly that we are having a live show tonight after the Warriors and the Cavaliers game. It's an early game for Martin Luther King Day. And the key here I want to stress is that we're going to do it at Facebook Live. And I'm not sure if anyone here has seen a 2-man live show on Facebook Live. We're like breaking some ground here. And hopefully in a few days we're going to do it on Periscope. So we're suddenly going to have simulcasting on a bunch of different platforms in a way that you couldn't normally do that before. And I'm really excited about it, Dave. I know we tested it out yesterday and it looks and sounds amazing.
Yeah, it went well. And I love the fact that Facebook allows us to get questions right along the side of the video. So we can actually, in real time, respond to these questions. I mean, they pop up as they're being asked, which is great. So it gives us a chance to not only, get great questions and to be able to answer them, but, shout you guys out and kind of let you know how much we appreciate the fact that people actually watch what we're doing.
Yeah, and then when we get Periscope going, I know that Twitter for me and for you, it's blowing up a little bit too, has always been a really fantastic place to interact. And to be able to have a live show after games with you and I talking remotely, because normally you'd see a Periscope with one person holding up their phone. This is going to be a really high quality, high quality camera stuff. It sounds really good. It's going to be a really great show. So I can't wait to do that tonight. So make sure that you tune in over to Facebook. Go to facebook.com/bballbreakdown and check that out. And then if you're on Twitter, you can we'll probably have the direct links up there as well. And then Periscope, hopefully, we just got to get one email back from them, and we'll get it all set up. Well, do we want to? Should we wrap up with another subject?
Yeah. Well, let's just do. I was gonna say let's do a quick preview for the game tonight, and this is more like maybe like a scouting report type of preview.
Okay.
Like keys to victory. So for the Cavs, what do you think they're the big thing they need to focus on tonight?
Well, I have to imagine they're going to want to. They can't get outscored from the 3-point line by a lot. Like they need to keep pace with that. So that's what they're going to focus. Is going to be that Kyle Korver is now on there and he's been doing nicely. So they generate them basically with post ups from LeBron. And the question then is how are the Warriors going to defend that? Are they going to double and then risk giving up the 3, or are they going to try let LeBron score 35 points down low and shut everyone else down? And see. So I think that's the key for the Cavaliers is can they generate 3-point shots enough and knock them down?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the pace of the game, right? Like Cavs are on a road trip. I think they considered sitting Kevin Love and LeBron and Kyrie tonight, which would have just been a complete slap in the face to. Oh,
I would have been burning jerseys if they do that.
Yeah, that just, that would have been so disrespectful. But I think that the biggest thing that they need to do is to keep the ball out of Steph Curry's hands. And conversely, for the Warriors, I think the most important thing they can do is to get the ball into Steph Curry's hands as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And don't do this thing where, if Andre Iguodala is ever initiating your offense, that's a problem. Especially against a good team. They need to keep the ball in his hands because otherwise the Cavs have shown they will be extra physical with him and they'll get away with it. And it wears you down. I saw a stat, all of his percentages drop for the last 4 games against the Cavs. They've dropped 2% field goal percentage, 3% threes. He scores less because they're spending the first 2 quarters wearing him down. So by the end of the game, when you're already going to be tired anyway, he's a little extra tired.
Right. And so maybe they can even cut some minutes in the first half just to kind of get him out there, because I've often felt like whenever I had a really good shooter, sometimes I just take him out for a little bit and then put him back in because the team kind of forgets about him. And then you might get a possession or two where he's like, oh, crap, he's open, and he gets a shot. But without question, they are physical and they face guard him, and they ignore the ball when they're guarding him. So it's like the only protection he has is when he has the ball. They cannot be as physical as they would like to be with him with the ball. They discovered this when they won the championship, and they've kind of forgotten about it a little bit. And whether or not you want to save it or not, you still got to try and get your confidence and get your mind's eye. Steph needs to be able to visualize success with the ball against Cleveland, and that's sort of what's not happening, because even if it's he gives a short roll to Draymond, that's okay because his gravity has pulled them out of the way and they've been attacking. When you get him off the ball, and for all the beautiful hashtag basketball, this is the one team that seems to really understand how to focus on that and has Richard Jefferson and Iman Shumpert, and then even Kyrie. There's footage of him out there like grabbing and holding him and making it hard on him. And that is definitely the key. I would like to see LeBron just go for 40 and shut everyone else down and see if that's going to have any effect. It might not, but it seems to me that Cleveland's at their best when he's getting his 24 and they're lighting up 12, 13 threes in a game.
Yeah, LeBron, what he's doing this season is so impressive, man. It is such an example of restraint. And then every now and then you see him break something out, when he goes up for a dunk and his chin is above the rim, and it's like, okay, so this guy is still the super athlete that we know, but he's just taking it easy. And I think that it's impressive because he's making the guys around him better.
Yeah. He's averaging 8 assists per game, and that's a career high. It's crazy. Yeah. And I think And by the way, real quickly, the idea behind this is that he's taking it easy, but what he's also doing is empowering his teammates, right? He's kind of doing what Russ could do in theory, right, if he had a different kind of game. Now, it's different because LeBron is just so much bigger, and that is a huge factor that he just simply is blessed with that size. But, these guys are going to have experience of succeeding, and they might need him in the playoffs. These guys, the 6th, 7th, 8th guys.
Yeah, well, also, I mean, and to be fair, LeBron does have much better teammates. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Iman Shumpert would probably start. No, maybe not. Or maybe he wouldn't start over Oladipo. But Iman Shumpert, who's not great, would be a significant minute player for Oklahoma City. I don't know how he still is in Cleveland. I guess that they just don't have the wing depth right now. But
right. I mean, I like him defensively for the most part, and like there was promise on offense from him 2 years ago, and. It's weird. He hasn't been able to figure out when and how and where to get those attacking, things because he'll do these complicated dribble move stuff and it just doesn't get him anywhere. It's a struggle, and maybe he'll figure it out. But you're right, but he's good. He's good. He's certainly defensively he's useful for them and versatile. So it should be a really good game. It feels like the Warriors are ready. They've all had rest. They're at home. It's their chance to slug back and see what's going to happen. So who do you think is going to win?
Gun to my head, probably the Warriors. It's a home game. My big debate on that though is the Warriors have been really bad this year on national TV. Kevin Durant. When was the last time Kevin Durant had a big game on national TV?
I don't even pay attention to that. I mean, most of the games are good,
time.
But okay,
right. But the Warriors have been especially bad on national TV, and they haven't been great against good teams. So except for Toronto. So I'm curious to see how it works out. And I expect we'll see Warriors get a big lead. Cleveland comes back. Warriors hold on and win by like 8 or so.
Huh. Yeah, I would go with the home team. It's a weird start time as well, so you have a feeling that these teams are going to be off. I bet you the first quarter is going to be disjointed and strange because these guys are programmed to perform, and there's a clock and a rhythm that they have. And we see this on Sunday morning games, and it's always a little bit weird usually. So I would imagine that like the first quarter will be strange because they're kind of again heavyweight fight. They're feeling each other out. It's a weird start time, but I would go with the home team. I'm looking forward to it. I cannot wait to get out there, Vine the crap out of this thing, or Twitter video, and then we're going to get Vine camera coming up tomorrow or something. So I'm looking forward to that. But either way, it should be a really great matchup. We deserve one. We haven't really had. I mean, we've had some epic games recently, but this one we deserve a really good epic game between two great teams.
Yeah, we do. And these guys that are going to meet again in June, and this would be a nice little preview. I know the Warriors, they want to get back that Christmas Day loss for sure. Like it matters to them.
Absolutely.
As much as they say it doesn't, it matters.
Right.
These guys are professionals, but they're people too.
Well, I have to tell you, every Monday conversation that we have matters to me because I think it matters to everyone out there because this is blowing up here. Everyone's loving it. So let us know what you think about the podcast on Twitter because we love to hear from you and adjust on the fly if we have to. We'll drop a play to figure out how the podcast can improve. But either way, let us know if you love it or you hate it, whatever. And rate and review on iTunes. It's really a great way to continue that flame. We're already in the top 10 on NBA search and iTunes for podcasts, and let's keep going.
Yeah, actually, you took the words right out of my mouth. The importance of rating and reviewing the podcast. We live in an iTunes-centric world, and this is how people find it. We need to know what we're doing well and what we need to work on. So if you guys don't write us a review, we don't know.
Well, thank you for breaking this stuff down here. Really great conversation, and I like the fact that we went in depth on less subjects and really made some interesting cases. So let us know about the Russ stuff too, because I'm always curious. I'm dealing with my demons, my Russ demons, and I'm trying to overcome them. So feel free to hop on wherever and let us know what you think. And you know what? Don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Dave?
Yes, I am.